Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Ciao, everybody. As promised, we have the Haskell by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. We really had some great shows on the Triple Crown Trail with the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. Really pointed out some live horses and some not so live horses. So hopefully we can keep that going on the Haskell, which turned out to be a really great card at Monmouth Park. I know Saratoga is the place to be, and Del Mar opens on Friday, but they really put together a nice card at Monmouth for Haskell Day, and the Haskell came up a really intriguing race for a lot of different reasons, and we'll talk about that when we go through the numbers and the patterns. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I think we'll enjoy the show. It'll be fun for me to do, and I hope it's fun for all of you. So we'll be back in a minute. Hang tight. White Beam, to me, is a very intriguing upset possibility. She should be 4, 5, 6 to 1.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
It is here, the big day, the day almost all of us in horse racing wait for, Breeders' Cup Saturday. It looks like we're going to see some really impressive races on Saturday. It starts with the filly and mare sprint. One of my stronger opinions on the card is Goodnight Olive to start things off. I think she gets a perfect trip.
Goodnight Olive, 6 in a row and a Breeders' Cup champion.
We've got Modern Games going in the Turf Mile for Godolphin. The Godolphin and Aidan O'Brien horses we said on Past the Wire TV all week long on the backside. Those two contingents stuck out from all the rest. Modern Games looking for a big race from him.
Modern Games storming down the center of the course. Modern Games, a two-time Breeders' Cup winner. You bet he is.
That is Rebels Romance, who in my humble opinion is one of Godolphin's better chances this year. Rebels Romance is a very good looking Godolphin horse that can absolutely win this race. Rebels Romance is a must use.
Rebels Romance rolling on the outside. Warlock got it. Makes her bend down toward the inside. Rebels Romance down the center of the course. Has it close to home. Rebels Romance wins the turf over Stoney.
We got Flightline that they're putting in the best ever category. There's no question that the race he ran in the Pacific Classic is one of the best races we've seen any racehorse run ever.
It is Flightline. It is spine-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like Breeders' Cup Classic win. He won it by 8 lengths on the wire.
I'll tell you, this race came up really tough. Uh, it's a puzzle to handicap. It really is, and the Thorograph numbers and patterns are certainly going to help. We'll go through each horse and see who is moving forward, who is not likely to move forward, who is, possibly likely to bounce or regress. We do have the bounce show coming up next week. I know we postponed it a couple of times, but we've been super busy, and schedules between Jeff Franklin from Thorograph and myself have just been crazy. So we both apologize for that, but we got it on the schedule and we got it on the agenda, so it's coming. It's not as time sensitive as some of these races. I mean, the Haskell Saturday, so we got to do that. As promised, we got the test by the Thorograph numbers and patterns coming up. We got the Travers by the Thorograph numbers and patterns coming up, which should be interesting to kind of compare not only with the Triple Crown races earlier, but also with the Haskell, because we'll be able to kind of, look and see, who went forward, where we were right, where we were wrong, and where the puzzle may lead us. Interesting stuff, and hopefully stuff that we can turn into profit. I got to give myself a little humble brag shout out, because we did a show a couple of weeks ago, the fastest 3-year-olds by the Thorograph numbers and patterns, and I put 2 horses on there that were kind of up and comers and not really on the radar screen. One was by a lot of requests. A lot of people requested Extra Anejo. He's in the Haskell. Go Rocket Ride. He's in the Haskell. So both of those horses, although they weren't really part of the Triple Crown Trail and not really thought of as the best and fastest of the 3-year-olds, they were on that show. I put them on that list. We talked about them. You can go back and look at that anytime you want. It's up there on Past the Wire TV and on the website, pastthewire.com. But now we will get to the Haskell. And it starts with Go Rocket Ride from the rail. Interesting up and comer, Go Rocket Ride. Was on the Derby Trail early. Kind of had a setback, came back fresh, won. Interestingly enough, Richard Mandela ships to Monmouth for the Haskell. $1 million grade 1 race. Why not? Mage is kind of using it as a prep for the Travers. $1 million grade 1 prep kind of doesn't sound right, but it is what it is. And the race has kind of evolved into a Travers prep, and still kept a lot of its own luster and prestige, which is pretty cool. But Go Rocket Ride. Let's look at his pattern. Okay, didn't run it 2. Santa Anita wins his debut 4 1/4, comes back, runs second 4 1/4, then lays off, comes back, runs a 5. He worked 2 furlongs way back when, which is not something you often see anybody do, let alone Richard Mandela. He's got speed, he's got pace, he can sit, he's got the rail with Mike Smith. But this show is not about handicapping the race. This show is about the Thorograph numbers and patterns and how they're moving. And I don't like a horse that runs 4 1/4, which is a good number, comes back, runs 4 1/4, good number early in their 3-year-old year, which was their debut year, and then comes back off the layoff and regresses a little bit, only run a 5, not a big regression, but I think he should have gone forward. And if he was as good as a lot of people thought he was, I think he would have gone forward. So he does not have a forward moving pattern, in my humble opinion. Awesome Strong as a 2-year-old, 14, 9, 9, 9, comes back as a 3-year-old at Delaware, runs an 8 3/4. 8 3/4 is not near fast enough to win this race. None of his races are. He's got a forward moving pattern for sure. I think he will go forward, but forward enough to contend here, I don't see it. Even if he jumped five points forward to a 3, still not going to put him in the winner's circle for the Haskell. So no thank you for Awesome Strong. He looks like he's in the deep end of the pool and a deeper end than he wants to be or belongs at this point in his career anyway. Salute the Stars, extremely intriguing for 2 reasons. I know we're not really talking about handicapping, but he's sitting in the garden spot here. He really is when you look at the pace scenario. But on the numbers, very interesting, and he kind of parallels another horse that I'll mention in a minute. But as a 2-year-old, he ran on the grass at Ellis, was in a different barn then, but he ran a 13 1/4 and then a 9. Comes back as a 3-year-old, moves to the Brad Cox barn. We know Brad Cox kills him, okay? They take a race at Churchill Downs off the grass, winds up on the dirt. He wins, runs a 6 1/2. Comes back at Monmouth in the Pegasus, the Monmouth Pegasus, not the Gulfstream Pegasus, which is the prep for the Haskell. And he jumps 5 points forward to a 1 1/2. Remember, we talked about Archangelo, the Belmont winner, who went 10, 5, 1. And I was worried that he would regress in the Belmont, and he did. He ran, I think, a 2 and change. He regressed and still won the race. I'm not so sure that Salute the Stars regresses. He's in a different barn. Brad Cox against Jenna Antonucci. No knock on Jenna, but she's not Brad Cox resume-wise at this point in her career. So, this horse goes to Brad, lightly raced, 6 1/2. 1 1/2. He goes forward again, and he's deadly. And getting away from the numbers for a minute, trip wise, he looks like he's really sitting in the catbird seat. Gets to jump on the deep closes, sits off a lot of speed. Has that win over the track. Very dangerous horse, and he's only got 2 races as opposed to 3 for Archangelo. So he's 3rd off the layoff. A lot of people like that angle. 3rd time Brad Cox. He's made 2 big. He's made 1 big forward move. I don't think he can move another 5 points forward. It's not impossible, but I don't think he can. But I certainly think he's capable of going forward at least a little bit and run a 0, maybe even, break into a negative number, which makes him very, very dangerous. Mage has actually ran the Derby winner, the fastest race of anybody in here. He ran a 0 when he won the Derby. But let's look at his pattern. We know he didn't run a 2. He ran a 5 when he broke his maiden at Gulfstream, run another 5. Came back and run a 3 3/4 when he won that 2nd in the Florida Derby to Forte. Then he runs a 0 in the Derby that he wins. He comes back in the Preakness, doesn't get an ideal setup, gets a much better setup in the Haskell, and runs a 3 1/2 despite the bad setup. And in my opinion, not the greatest ride in the Preakness. He's off since the Preakness. That's mid-May. We're now, 3 weeks into July. Not a big layoff, but it is somewhat of a layoff. I know they turned him out for a little bit of time, gave him a couple of weeks break. He was certainly entitled to it. I believe he comes back better, stronger, and faster than he left. Very dangerous, very eligible to go past that 0. That pattern 5, 5, 3 1/4, 0, 3 1/2, going into the Derby. You can go back and look what I said. Dangerous, forward-moving pattern, extremely live. He delivered. The numbers held through. I have no reason to think he can't, grown up a little bit more mature, go past that 0. And that makes him absolutely the horse to beat, even if Salute to Stars goes forward. He gets pace to run at. So pace scenario is good. Here's the rub. The rub is they want to win the Travers. They want to have a big, second half of the year, and they want to run him at 4. So he's probably not 100% cranked up for this race. Can he win it anyway? Absolutely. But I think Salute the Stars gets the jump on him. He's got a forward moving pattern though, and that's the focus of this show. And if he delivers on that pattern and goes past the 0, Mage winds up at the top of the class and probably one of, if not the fastest 3-year-old out there right now. Tapit Trice didn't run all that good in the Belmont. He did get a good number, but the Belmont was a wide race. A lot of horses lost a lot of ground. So even though, in my opinion, nobody in that field wanted to go a mile and a half, nobody was running at the end. It looked like everybody was tired, and it made it look like Forte's race, in my opinion. It just looked better than it was in reality. But let's look at Tapit Trice, and we see as a 2-year-old, 8 3/4, 6.5. As a 3-year-old, 4.5, 4 1/4, 1 at Keeneland when he won. The Derby, he runs a 5. He comes back into Belmont and runs a 1, despite not wanting to go a mile and a half. Now, with the pace set up and running a distance that I think he's gonna prefer to that mile and a half, he's eligible to go forward. But he's on his numbers, he's iffy. 4.5, 4 1/4, 1, 5, 1. The 2 times he ran a 1, okay, he regressed. So if we're going to stick to our, pattern analysis, which we've been trying to do on these shows, I see a horse that run a 1 twice. A 1 is fast enough to contend here, but both times he ran the 1, he come back and regressed. So 3 strikes, you're out. I tend to think he's got a pattern that says he's probably going to regress. So we'll find out if that holds true. How great is Nate? Probably not great enough to win the Haskell, but he does have a forward moving pattern as a 2-year-old, 12.5, 10 1/4, 9 1/4, 6 3/4. Comes back at 3, loses the rider in the first start at Aqueduct, but then at Laurel doesn't go past his 2-year-old number, runs a 9 1/4. I prefer when they go past the 2-year-old number, but he doesn't. Then he, in his second start, he goes 6 1/4, then 4 1/4 at Monmouth. Both of those starts were actually at Monmouth. So, 9 1/4, 6 1/4, 4 1/4. I like the pattern. I like the forward progression. So I think he's going to go forward again, maybe 3 and change, 2 and change. But that's not fast enough to win. So although he may go forward, I don't think he can go forward enough to win the race. But he does have a forward moving pattern, and it always pays to pay attention to those patterns, because they are what they are. Extra Anejo, that's one of the ones that was kind of under the radar, not on a lot of lists. I put him on the fastest 3-year-olds show because a couple of people had mentioned him to me and asked me what I thought of him. I think he's a little overrated and a little overhyped, but we'll find out on Saturday. But pattern-wise, he gets that big buyer number first time out. But on the sheets, on the Thorograph, he runs a 4 1/4, fast for 2-year-old, but not wow. like the bio would indicate, but runs 4.25. Comes back at Churchill, runs a 7. Then at Ellis, they stretch him out. He equals that 2-year-old number, runs a 4.25. Probably going to go forward. 7, 4.25. Another forward move, 3, 2. Maybe even 1 and change, which would make him a contender. But I think a 3 or a 2 is much more likely. What we'll see from Extra Anejo. So forward moving pattern, yes, but again, he would have to really go forward more than is indicated in order to contend for the win. Which brings us to the outside horse and possibly the most talented horse in the race, and maybe one of the most talented horses in the 3-year-old division. And I say that knowing full well that the Kentucky Derby winner Mage is in here. Mage, we know, is one of the most talented 3-year-olds. Arabian Knight, we don't know it yet, but I certainly suspect it. First time out, Breeders' Cup weekend at Keeneland, he runs a 2.25 fast race for a debut horse. 2-year-old late in the year, bang. Off that race, he stretches out in the slop, 2 turns at Oaklawn Park. Doesn't go past that number, but runs a very fast race in the slop, a 3.5. Was at the top of the class, dominated the Southwest. 2 extremely fast races, although I don't like the way the pattern went necessarily, but because it was slop and because he, was going 2 turns the first time, I got to say there's really no knock there, and that pattern might be a little deceptive. Now, what do we have? We have a horse that's working 112s, the patented Bob Baffert grade 1 works. He's another one that's probably grown up some. Every reason to think that he goes past that 2-year-old number. That 2-year-old number was a 2.25. So that puts him right into 1s or 0s and puts him right, smack in the fastest of the division conversation. Problem with and with him in this race, and we're going to get away from the patterns and the numbers momentarily for a moment, is he's got a tough draw and a tough pace scenario. There's a lot of speed in this race, so he's either got to be able to sit, which is something that he's never done, or he's got to be able to outrun him early and just gun and take him wire to wire. Both scenarios are possible, but neither one has. Well, he did go wire to wire in the Southwest, but not with this much pace in there. So, he's got to go forward, which I'm confident he will, but he's got to be able to work out the right kind of trip in order to capitalize on that going forward. But he's definitely one of the ones that has a very fast pattern and looks like he's going to go forward. So we got Arabian Knight moving forward, and and that makes him a absolute win contender. Extra Anejo probably going forward, but probably not enough to make him a win contender. How Great Is Nate? Another one probably going forward, but not enough to make him a win contender. Tappet Trice regressed twice off the 1s, pattern wise, likely going to regress again. So not what I would call a forward moving pattern. Mage definitely has a pattern that I think is gonna move forward, and that makes him a win contender. Salute the Stars has already run fast enough to win, has a pattern to go forward, makes him very, very dangerous and a win contender. Awesome Strong, again, another one that might go forward and looks like they can go forward, but not enough to make him a contender. Go Rocket Ride, has good races, has a lot of hype, great barn, great trainer, but doesn't have what I would consider a forward moving pattern with the 4.25, 4.25, and a 5. So that's the Haskell by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. We'll see how it shapes up. We'll see how these numbers shape up and what they run in this race when some of these horses run back in the Travers against some horses that aren't even in this race. You've got the Curlin coming up, the Jim Dandy coming up, and all those races will lead to the Midsummer Derby, the Travers Stakes that we will do by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns. So with that, thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this show. I hope that it gave you a little insight. We'll cover the Haskell in more detail on Tracking Trips at Past the Wire. There'll be a column about the Haskell on Amwager as well that I wrote. So there's a lot more Haskell information out there if you want to go look for it. But strictly sticking to the numbers and patterns like we like to do on these Thorograph shows. We know who's moving forward, likely. We know who's moving backwards, likely. We know who's going to be fast enough to win and how things are going to shape up. And, so far, say what you will, the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns have not led us astray at all. If there was a mistake, and it really wasn't a mistake, it was my mistake in the Belmont. And I said Archangelo would probably regress. He did. He just regressed and won. So that was really on me, not on the Numbers and Patterns. He held true to the Numbers and Patterns as the Triple Crown races did all across the board. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your comments on what you think, if you agree on the moving forward, moving backwards, and what's going on. We've got the Test, the Travers, any other races that you really want to see by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns, leave them in the comments. Let me know. We'll try and get them done for you. A lot more stuff coming out, some possibly really, really great stuff coming. So, keep watching, keep supporting us. We appreciate it. And ciao for now. Legend himself, Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
Frankie Dettori, legend, world-class jockey, one of the best ever to sit in the saddle, ambassador to the sport of kings. Meet Frankie during his fanfare like never before, only on Past the Wire TV.
Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
In the Breeders' Cup Classic, Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino
Nobody does it better.